Just to intro John to y'all, I'm sure y'all know his name, but if you don't know anything about him, because this is like the first trip I've ever seen John on. He came to the Bahamas. I don't think he's been on a trip before that. So if you haven't met John in person or you don't know much about him, it wouldn't surprise me. He kind of lurks in the shadows a little bit. But he is an amazing person. I've been very fortunate enough as I've been, around the North Star team more and more, gotten to know John, and he's just such a wonderful person. He is on Seth and Bert's team up in Minneapolis in Dane Espigard's office. He is an assistant coordinator there and helps do a lot of their admin stuff, their charges, their show bookings, things like that. So he contributes at a very high level to their division. John is super, super tall. And he just has the biggest heart and is so sweet and so helpful whenever you need anything. And he has this amazing sense of humor that I just love being around. And he's a super fun person. And then the other great thing is he's very talented in his business. He sells a lot of Cutco at the booth. He sells a lot just residentially. But the big thing that he has really taken off with in the last year especially, but really that he's been working on for the last few years, has been his business gifts. If you attended the virtual summit, he did talk for a few minutes. He was on the panel about some of his experience with selling business gifts and some of the tips that, things that he's learned and things that he thinks will help other reps be successful. But man, you talk about somebody who I would venture to say is one of the most talented people at selling business gifts in our company right now. I'd say top three for sure. It's crazy how much focus and dedication he has on that particular area of the business. I think for a lot of us, it's something we kind of dabble in a little bit, or, if it kind of naturally, organically comes up in conversation at the booth, then they mention, oh yeah, I happen to do this for a living. And you go, oh, this is a good idea. I should ask them about business gifts. John is so committed to selling business gifts at the booth. He literally asks every single person who he talks to at the booth if they own a business or give gifts to clients or employees. Not even just people who he has sold to, even people who, and I don't want to steal his thunder if he's going to talk about this, but I remember just Seth telling me a story about a guy who said, the paring knife was way too expensive and he needed a replacement paring knife and was like, I'm not going to pay $65 for that. I was going to walk away. And John happened to ask, hey, do you own a business or give gifts to clients, employees? And ended up selling the guy business gifts because maybe he didn't value that paring knife at $65, but that doesn't mean he didn't value business gifts. And so I feel like the more tools we have in our arsenal, the more opportunities we have to sell people, maybe not just what we want to sell them, but maybe what they really need. So it's not just their residential knives, but maybe they need business gifts, and maybe they're not willing to buy a set of Cutco, but they have a business and they're already buying gifts for it. So why wouldn't they spend the money with us instead of with someone else? So he's been very diligent about asking everyone if they have a business or give gifts to clients, employees, and he's really inspired the team up there to make sure that they're doing the same. He encourages Bert and Seth to ask everybody. And I was up there a couple weeks ago helping out at an event, and same thing. I had a guy I talked to, and he said, he's going to walk around and think about it. And before he left, John jumps in and said, hey, do you have a business or give gifts to clients, employees? And the guy's like, oh, yeah, I do. So we didn't end up closing anything, but I got a good lead out of it. And we talked about business gifts. And that was a conversation that we wouldn't have even had if it hadn't been for John. So really excited to hear his thoughts and what he's going to talk to us about today. We've asked him to just give us some tips in general on business gifts and how we can kind of implement it more and at a higher level. And I really want to encourage all of us this year, especially when we're at the fairs, to really, really, really hold each other accountable to asking our clients about business gifts, because we've started, I don't know who's all getting it, if just the business gift test group is getting the emails, but we have been getting emails from Steve Spry just announcing like, hey, by the way, Curtis just closed a $10,000 business gift. Hey, by the way, so-and-so just closed a $6,000 business gift order. And we're seeing more and more and more big business gift orders popping up around the country. And it's just because people are getting more focused on it. Where focus goes, energy flows. And when you are focused on looking for business gift clients, you will suddenly start to see that there are business gift clients everywhere. I'd venture to say, 25 to 30% of the people we're talking to every day would be great business gift clients. So we need to make sure we're asking everybody. So I hope we can really focus on holding each other accountable during our fairs this year, especially, and making sure we're holding each other to that and making sure we're saying, hey, did you ask that guy if he owned a business? Because he just bought an Ultimate from you, paid in full like it was nothing. You probably should have asked him. I hope that we can get to that level, and that being kind of the new standard, that we make sure to ask everybody about that. And I think that is a huge needle mover in our state fair opportunity and just in our sales for the year. So now that I've talked about him for like 10 minutes, John, why don't you go ahead and kick it off?
Thank you, Kelly. Yes, I was going to touch on a lot of those things. So does anybody have any questions?
Good, you're done.
All right. I feel like, are there any reasons why I get the numbers for business gifts, and I see how many people are selling gifts and how many people are not selling gifts. One thing I'd like to ask before I get too far, and I'm going to keep it very simple because I think it is simple and it can be simple. But are there any reasons why we're not pitching everybody at the booth? Because I think our team is the only team that does focus on it, and I know Seth and Bert are, probably the second and third guys, because they work with me, that do pitch it a lot, and I know that they don't pitch it every time either. So maybe I can open up this chat here, but are there any concerns as to, like, do we just forget to pitch it? Are we afraid to pitch it because maybe like me selling cookware, like I'm not, the scariest thing for somebody to come up and say is, hey, do you guys have cookware? And I say, it's our joke on our team is, if you can quote the price, then you can buy it. Because those are usually the people that buy cookware from me. So what are the reasons that we're not asking everybody at the booth?
I'll volunteer as tribute on this. This is probably my one of the things I wish I was better at, just in general. And I think it comes from just the simple fact that I don't feel like I was ever trained on how to deal with this in a residential space. I've always just known this is what I do, and it was never taught like, well, this is how you introduce it. Or usually when it's talked about, it's like, well, if you sell someone something, then you upsell it, and then that's how you bring up the conversation. And you just remember these questions. Or it's just, I try to focus on it, but I feel like the issue for me is this deep into the game. It's almost like, I hate to just say it like this, but it's almost cut and dry. I know exactly how to sell the set of knives. I know exactly how to show a past customer what's good. And it's almost like it gets put on the back burner, and it's not like it's not on the front lines of my thought process. And I don't know if it's just something I have to mention at the beginning of the pitch right away, or if there's a difference between past customers and new customers with it. But I've even went training with Joseph Rodriguez, and he talks about just mentioning it to everybody, but I don't know. I just don't feel like I have the formula. And I'm intimidated, as you kind of mentioned with cookware. Anytime I even think about it, or if I'm like mentioning, I'm like, well, maybe they'll just think it's a good idea, and then that's it. Like, I feel like I just have a lack of belief in myself in doing it more than anything, but because I just hardly ever sell business gifts. But that's my thing.
Cool. Thank you. Okay.
I think, John, I'll say that, I'm definitely not the most habitual with like pitching every single client on the topic or on the program. And so for me, it's really just been about not having things like, I have samples out on my display boards that are engraved, right? And I have a business gift pack right in front of me, but it's like facing the client. So I don't necessarily, it's just not top of mind for me. So I guess the biggest unanswered question that I have is really like, what are the things that you and other people have been doing to just booby trap yourself to success, like to put yourself in a position where you just don't forget to talk to somebody about it. There's so many packages, so many different programs, it becomes really easy to just lose sight of or forget or, get rushed there at the end because the customer's like, all right, I've been here for 25 minutes or an hour and a half. I'm ready to go. Like, how do you set yourself up to make sure that if you're only going to show certain things, that is one of the things that you're showing, that like you're just triggering your mind to build that habit to remember to always do it.
Okay.
I have one too, John. Well, and obviously, hopefully you guys can see over in the side, Roger had mentioned, similar to Carlton, he just said having full clarity on handling all the objections that come up in regarding business gifts, or not having full clarity, basically, on like, what are the objections and like, how do I confidently talk to this business owner and make sure that, I can handle this pitch and their objections as confidently as I can with the kitchen knives. And then Rob also said closing on the spot versus proper follow-up for future closing. And then for me, very similar to Josh, I'm confident in pitching it and closing it and handling objections. But my thing is I don't ask 90% of the time. It really only happens if they happen to see a gift and they ask about it, or, if they just happen to mention, oh yeah, well, I'm a home builder, so da-da-da-da. And I'm like, oh, by the way, then it's a light bulb for me. And then I go into it and then I close it. And it's a wonder I don't just ask more. It's like Josh said, I feel like a lot of times it's you only have a few minutes of somebody's attention, and maybe we go into an upgrade, and maybe we start looking at flatware, and then they're kind of like, okay, we got to go, or we've spent enough money. Sometimes it can feel very rushed and hurried, especially if it's a busy fair. And sometimes it just feels like, oh, do you want to see the cookware? No. Oh, do you want to see flatware? No. And then it feels like, there's one more package to look at. And that's just not my first go-to thought to ask about. So I just forget more often than not. And it's kind of like, oh, and then Matt Foss said, afraid of wasting time because I don't know how to close on the spot confidently. And then just forgetting to ask. So I think that's just, we need to make it more of a consistent thing. So I'm curious to hear how you train yourself to do that.
Can I add one more thing too as well?
What's that, Roger?
Yeah. Cool. So, yeah, I mean, it's just basically kind of like regarding what I just said, but, if a customer comes up and, we show them a set and they're like, well, I need to talk to my husband or spouse about it. We know how to handle that objection, but it's like the types of objections that we get when people are buying or purchasing business gifts are completely different from what I've heard. It's like, well, I don't know what that would look like, or I need to talk to my business partner, or I need to see, with like the person that handles the client. Like, it's just completely different. Not completely, but they are different objections. And it would be nice because, like Carlton said, we're just kind of given like, yeah, just pitch it and then just figure it out. But if like, show reps, it's like, yeah, man, just show them like the 3 sets and you figure it out. Odds of people closing it are very slim, right? However, if we were actually given some things to say, hey, these are the potential objections you're going to get, and these are the ways to handle those objections, and see it role played live, because seeing it role played with like you and I is very different than seeing it role played. It's like, okay, well, if you go to a customer and pitch it to them, it's completely different. Because I just closed like my second business gift order ever in my career, like a week ago, and I was like, I have no idea how the fuck I did that, but I literally just tripped the bell and he bought it, and I was like, that's so epic. And what sucks is I had to charge my account like some money because I did a lot of wrong things. Like, I didn't charge for this, I didn't charge for that, I misquoted him this price. It's like,
you don't have a price list, do you?
No, yeah, and the prices I do have is like outdated, and I'm like, son of a gun. So it would just be nice to know and have full clarity, because I think that's the reason why people don't ask, because we're scared, because we don't actually fully know how to dive deep into the business gift aspect. Ultimate upgrade, flatware, cookware, dude, we got that locked down. But business gifts, the reason we're not asking, I feel like, is because we don't have full clarity on it. So a way to get full clarity would be nice.
Okay. Anything else before I try to handle these? Probably the biggest reason, I'm going to give you 2 reasons for focus. The biggest reason that I'm so focused on it is because I want it and I see the potential. Like, I know, like this order that Kelly is referring to, where referred to earlier, where the guy had was complaining about the price of a paring knife. He bought $12,000 worth. This was, I think, the same one we pitched, or I talked about on the thing, but he bought $12,000 worth of cheese knives. Didn't even look at the total on his receipt. It was 8,100 CPO. That was right at the booth. And that is that. I think that was my biggest order at the booth, but I know I saw, let's see, Seth sold an $8,000 CPO order at the state fair last year. And that was actually an order that I had sold the year before. It was his customer. But like, to me, it's kind of one of those things where I feel like we give the kitchen tools prime real estate on our booth. Like on our booth, oftentimes we have the kitchen tools right next to the homemaker set. How many CPO in kitchen tools do we sell every year? I mean, maybe $1,000, if they're selling them with the cookware set. Like that is prime real estate where I think like we should have like our business gifts. Like we should put our business gifts right there, because that is going to be something that, you could sell legitimately this year, even 10 to 30,000 in CPO, extra CPO at the booth, if you just focus on selling business gifts. And having a desire, like wanting to sell, is going to be half of it. The other one, this is what I do, and this is how I keep it top of mind. Like this silly sign here, it's like double-sided, and usually I just put this right behind, and then I put a gift set right here, and this is just right in front. And believe it or not, the reason that, like, you'll notice this is not marketing, this is not designed at all, and that's for a reason, because I want them to read it. Like, I think we're so used to seeing, nice designs that we just overlook them. So this is just so easy and simple that the idea is that they're actually going to read it. But what is there more for is so that I remember that this is, that it's right here, and I need to remember to ask them about business gifts, because I have that as a constant reminder that's right in front of me. Literally, I put it right next to where my homemaker set is. I have my gift, and then I have my sign right there. So it's always right in front of me. So that's how I keep it top of mind. And then a lot of it too is just, I want money. Like, I want to make that big sale. And I know that Cutco for a business gift is so, like, nobody is thinking about it. Nobody's using it. Like, we are at the tip of the iceberg as far as I'm concerned. And I think legitimately that it is the best gift out there, and it solves all of their problems for a gift. And like, they're always, like, these business owners are always looking for something new. Like, they're used to giving gift cards or cash or gift baskets. Like, they want to do something new and different. And if they're at the Cutco booth, which they will be, of course, if you're talking to them, they like Cutco. Like, they love their Cutco, and they would be happy to share it with other people. And that's exactly what you're allowing to do. And you're allowing them to, to write it off as a tax deduction at the same time. So getting, like, the first thing I would say is you have to want it. Like, you have to want to sell business gifts. I would say starting with the desire. Second thing would be, like, just making some simple sign like this. And I could probably send this to Kelly, I guess, if you guys want. She can send it to you. Just to print it out and just to put it right behind your gift set, just so that, and then put that gift set right in front of you at the booth. And that will help keep it top of mind. And then you're going to remember to ask it more. But what I was getting at before, as far as the potential with the gift, is I think that business gifts are the biggest area of, like, the biggest upsell potential. You're not going to sell, most likely, I feel like you're more likely to sell $8,000 CPO in a business gift order than you are in, flatware, cookware, upgrade, anything else. And that's why I make it such a priority to promote those promote business gifts is because I see the potential in, the size of the order. Let me see here. So I would say the most important thing to do, very simply, is asking everyone. And just like, remember, the first question that we always ask everybody when they come up to the booth is, are you familiar with Cutco? Like that's our go-to, the first thing we always say. I think the last question should be, do you run a business or give any gifts to clients or employees? Like that very simple question will generate you so much CPO just by asking it. Now, and just getting in the habit of, and like we have to be okay with, and we're in sales, we're used to hearing no, we're used to failing. We have to be okay with, it's not going to be perfect. You're not going to sell everybody. But you know what? They're already, like, most of the time, like, this is the last question that I ask, and they're already almost walking away. So what do they say? They say no. Okay, no problem. They say, yeah, I do. Cool. Can I show you what we do with Cutco? No, I'm fine. Or more often than not, sure, what do you do? And then you just tell them what we do. So which is, cool. Most businesses give some sort of gift. Usually it's a gift card, bottle of wine, fruit, cash. They love these things, but they're consumed and gone right away, and there's nothing left to remind them of you. So we take Cutco, which you're familiar with the quality, and we engrave it with your logo. It's something that they have forever. They use it every day. It's in the kitchen where it sparks conversations with friends and family. Because they're engraved, they're 100% tax deductible. And then one of my favorites has been, as you probably know, most people don't have any good knives, right? So the 1 or 2 knives that they get are their favorites. They have it forever. They use it every day. And it's the only one that they use. So they always know, where to find your information, 5 to 10 years down the road if they have referral or need your services again. But the big thing is that it is just like every part of the business. We've, the sets, upgrades, cookware, flour, it is a numbers game. I mean, if we can't expect to sell, 10 flatware chests on the first 10 people that we pitch. Like we need to pitch, it needs to be a habit that you're pitching, everybody or showing everybody, because with the business gifts, you may ask 100 people and you'll probably 40 of them, say 30 to 40 of them are interested. And then you might sell 5 of them there, and you might, you could follow up. You might have to follow up with the rest of them. But it's all about building the funnel, feeding the funnel, and just persistently asking and asking and asking. And that's how we'll get to the, 20, 30, even, I mean, I know that every one of us has missed out on a $50,000 sale at the booth because they've walked away and they have no idea about business gifts, and of course they're not thinking about them either. But it's just important. That is the most important thing, is just asking and asking and asking. And I would say too, so I'm going to try to handle some of these answer some of these questions, and then we'll get into some more. Honestly, with the objections, I just feel like there aren't that. I would say if you can sell them on the spot, the objections, like they're not going to object if they can buy there, because usually it's going to be they need to talk to their partner, they need to figure out the quantity. But it's important also, I forgot to ask, is after you pitch, it's very important to ask the qualifying questions if they're interested. So what I want to know is, once you start pitching and get in the habit, you're going to find that there are tons of businesses out there. And the last thing you want to do is waste your time on somebody that either isn't interested, they only spend, you know, $20 on a gift, or they only give one gift. When there's so many other people that spend, you know, $100 on a gift and they give 50 gifts. Like, those are the people that I want to focus my time on. But I want to know that those are the people that I'm focusing on. So you want to ask them after you pitch them, how many gifts do you give? When do you give them? How much do you spend? You know, because I want to know if they're worth my time and if I can sell them right on the spot. Because usually if it's February and they don't give gifts till November, most likely I'm not going to sell them right on the spot. Like, I'm going to follow up with them. And what they'll do is I'll call them, you know, a couple months later just to touch base. And then I'll call them again a couple months later. And if they're still interested, maybe I'll send them a sample. But it's important to make sure that you're asking the right questions so that you're following up properly. But I guess really, Roger, I wouldn't worry. I mean, if it's possible, like, to just not worry about the objections, because there's just not going to be very many, essentially, is what it comes down to. There's just not that many objections that I found. It's either they're interested or they're not interested. And I would say it's as simple as that. And if they're not interested, that's fine. You know, on to the next one. There's somebody else that is, for sure. The other, as far as a price list, we are working on one with Cutco, an official, like, Cutco price list, which it looks very nice. Very exciting. It should be out. There's going to be one for CGCs and non-CGCs. And I'm expecting in the next maybe 2 weeks or so, we should all have one. And I would definitely say go ahead and just print that out and put it in your binder. But that itself will help you. That will give you a lot of confidence as far as showing it, because just like we did with the family program, right? We've got that flyer. It makes it official. It's much easier to show. This will make it 10 times easier to show. It'll give you much more confidence in quoting the price, and it'll give credibility to the program for the customers as well, because it's just going to have all the quantities, the prices, all the gift sets, everything will be included. It'll be very straightforward and easy. So be watching for that over the next couple weeks. That's going to make it a lot easier. Another thing that I found that helps a lot, that Seth kind of thought of what we did, is when it comes to the booth, selling at the booth is, and I would say, if you can sell them at the booth, like, do everything you can to sell them at the booth. Meaning, if they give gifts throughout the year, or it's the end of the year, like, if there's not a huge reason for them not to buy, like, they're not the decision maker, or they don't even buy gifts till December, like, always offer some sort of deal to help them buy now. Because I can tell you, it is the hardest thing is getting a hold of them again, just because you just don't. I wish I knew why you don't get a hold of them, but so often they're just hard to get a hold of. Also, their excitement is at the peak right now, and they understand it, they get it, they're right in front of you. If you can give them, usually what we'll do is we'll offer them, an upgrade to the next discount. So if they're getting 50 gifts, we'll give them the price at 100. But do what you can to make them an offer to buy right there. That way you don't have to follow up. Let's see, pictures of set next to each price section. All right, I'm going to see if I can just take a picture of this real quick, just to show you what this price list looks like. Okay, thank you, Kelly. Never mind, you just answered it. Okay, so this is what it will look like. Okay, something like this. So there's going to be the gifts, the quantities, the prices, everything will be right there. So the most important things, make it easy to remember to pitch gifts. So you have to want it. Also, I like this. I have a sign, I have a gift right in front of me so that it's top of mind for me. So make it easy for you to remember. Ask everyone. So we have people, like literally somebody will come by and say they bought Cutco at Costco. So I know they're a Cutco owner and they're not interested in Cutco at all. Like they're just walking by. But I'll ask him, hey, you know, do you run a business or give any gifts? Because he's still a great prospect. Like everybody that has Cutco should be asked that question. Similarly, I had a guy that, you know, just like the guy with the paring knife, there was a guy that, you know, wanted to buy a fillet knife and he was making a big deal about the price. I still asked him. He happened to own a business, a construction company or something that he had 100 employees. And it ended up not being a sale, but who would have thought that he has 100 employees because he's making a big deal about spending $100? So I mean, you just have to add, but you don't know until you ask. And of course, obviously, right, you could start off with, you know, are they buying a set? You know, these should be automatic triggers. You know, is he spending more than $1,000? Are they wearing a Rolex? Do they have nice clothes? Like these are obvious things that if you're thinking about business gifts, it would make sense to ask these questions. But asking everyone, ask the right question. So set up a trigger so you can remember it. Ask everyone. Ask the follow-up questions. Ask the follow-up questions to see how interested they are and when they give gifts, and then close them on the spot if you can. So those would be the four things. And then follow-up. Honestly, like my follow-up is very just like my question as far as, hey, do you run a business or give any gifts? Like I'm not even trying to really build rapport. Like I'm just like whereas, you know, I could start building rapport and in 2 minutes I'll get to the question that I really want to ask. Like I'm just straight up asking them to get to the point. Similarly, when I'm following up, I just make the phone call and I don't even think about it. Like I just, hey, you know, just calling to touch base. I know we talked at the Home and Garden Show. You know, we talked about doing some gifts. Just wanted to know if it was a good time, if you were still thinking about that, if maybe we could set up a time to meet. Just make the call and figure it out as you go. And it's very, like, people are so used to nobody even following up with them that and they know why you're calling. Like all it takes is to make the phone call and to not be afraid to make the phone call. And the best way to do that is you just make the phone call. Like there was a realtor that had this sign on the way home on the way home from church. And I took a picture of the sign, put him on my list. And for whatever reason, I was just afraid to call him because it was a cold call, just knew nothing about him. And one day I just made the call. Didn't even think about it because you can't. You just, and I do this too. Like I'm still afraid, you know, to make cold calls. But you just can't think about it. You just dial. So I called him up. He answered, and basically it's the same pitch that I'm giving at the booth. Hey, I saw your sign. You know, I thought it was really cool that you did this. You know, this is what we do. And he's like, oh yeah, send me an email with your information. And I said, sure. And one thing I learned from doing a little bit of training with Grant Cardone is right now. Like 2 years ago, I would have sent that email out next week, right? What I did is while I was on the phone, I sent him the email. And then he got the email. He's like, oh, whoa, you're right. You're on top of it. I'm like, yeah, I am on top of it. And you know what? He ended up buying I don't know, 11 Santokus right there, right on the spot, because I sent him the email right then. And he can't say, like, otherwise he could say, oh, I'll wait till I get the email. And more than likely, I wouldn't have even got a hold of him again. But you just act and figure it out as you go, essentially is what it comes down to with some of these other things. But I feel like, to me, it is easy because I've done it a lot and I've focused on it. But it's just asking everybody that comes to the booth if they run a business or give any gifts. Like, that is the one thing that you need to do if you want to succeed in business gifts. Like, that is the only thing you need to do. That's the only thing that differentiates me in my business gift sales from anybody else. It's like, I've been selling it longer, but I've just made it a habit of asking everybody that comes to the booth. So what happens is I have more people in my funnel, and I have more people that are interested, and I have more people that I sell. Like, I know that, next year, if you start the habit this year, like this fall, of just asking everybody, you'll sell 10 to 20 grand in CPO at the booth. Next year, you'll sell 30 to 50 grand at the booth. And then the year after that, you'll sell, 50 to 100 grand. Like, just by creating that one habit of asking everybody if they run a business or give any gifts. So I hope you guys do. I hope you do that one thing, because you will see that it is that easy. And now I should say, yes, once you have these sell sheets, that will make a big difference as well. We will be coming out with, a little bit more training and stuff like that on a smaller scale. But honestly, I would not be afraid of the objections, because I just feel like they're a non-issue. Either they're interested or they're not. Don't worry about the objections. Just ask the question. That's all. Just ask. Please, just ask the question, and you will sell business gifts. Any other questions?
Yeah, I'd like to hear any other questions from anybody. Follow-ups?
Do you have any testimonials from customers you share, or anything you show along those lines?
No. Nope. I don't. I don't share anything. I tell them about it. I think they get it. Like, they get it because they know Cutco. They're familiar with the quality. They can see the engraving. They understand it. And it's like, I'd say it's one of those things, they either get it or they don't. But the biggest testimonial would be the quality of the product, which 99% of the time they are familiar with. So.
I have a question. Would you say when you're pitching business gifts, you pitch them more as client gifts or employee gifts?
That would be one of the questions that's a good question. And that's one of the questions that I ask at the end, or rather after I give the pitch and I see if they're interested. I say, do you give gifts more to clients or employees, or both? Because I want to know, right? Because then maybe you'd tailor it a little bit differently. Maybe they would personalize it, be more inclined to personalize it if it's an employee, and more inclined to put their logo on it if it's if it's to a client.
Then I have a follow-up question on that. So obviously, if it's a client, it's pretty easy. Logo on the left, name and phone number on the right most of the time. But if it's an employee, when it comes to personalizing, if they're doing 100 gifts, how are you figuring out how to personalize each one of those gifts? Like, are you putting like the company logo on there? Or are you putting like the employee's name? Like, what's the whole situation when you're personalizing the physical branding with them?
Usually they'll know what they want. I mean, I generally, I would say I would promote the logo in the name, because that's going to give them the tax deduction at least, as marketing. If they just want to do their name, I think that's a great idea. Yeah, first and last name would be good. I mean, I'm just saying that because that's what I would say to the customer, right? Is, yeah, oh, you want to do that? Great. You want to do this font? That's beautiful. Like, so I would just kind of go with the flow as far as what the customers, where they're leading you. But I would say in my case, most of the gifts that I do are, I mean, I would say just say that's most of the gifts that you're going to find are going to be to their clients. So they're not personalized.
I have a question, John. So we've walked through the question you asked. Do you give gifts to clients and employees? Can I show you what we do with Cutco? You pitch it, why make sense? And then your next question is, are you mainly giving to clients, or are you giving to employees? So let's say their answer is, oh, clients. Yeah, we usually typically give gifts to clients throughout the year after we finish a job, something like that. So what are your next questions, and how do you go from, great, you're pitching the gifts, to actually going through the details, getting into the weeds? How do you ask them just like pricing and which gifts they like and colors? Like, can you walk us through kind of the next few steps once you establish, great, they give client gifts and they're still with you, they're nodding along, they're liking the idea of this, they're engaged. Where do you go from there? So, yeah, client gifts.
I would ask, okay, so how much do you usually spend on a gift? And they'll say, oh, probably about 100 to 150. Cool. Should I show you some of the sets, some of the gift options that fall in that price range? And how many do you give as well? Would be another one. Oh, we probably give 50 gifts. Cool. So do you want to see, these would be some of these options. We've got this one here, this one. Which ones, generally does everybody get the same thing, or do you do different price ranges? No, everybody gets the same thing. Okay. Which one of these do you like the best? Do you like, the Club Mates? Do you like the cheese knife? Do you like the Welcome Home set, the Santoku, the shears, pocket knife? Try to just kind of narrowing down, based on price, based on quantity, which gift that they would want. How would they engrave it? So these are going to be similar to asking, would you get in black or white? Do you want the steak knives or the table knives? So similar that we would, similar questions we'd ask for closing the homemaker set or something. But just narrowing down and getting closer and closer to exactly what they want. And then I would say, do you want to see what kind of specials we have if you do it here at the show? And that's where you can gauge, or even saying, we do have our best discounts at the event here. Do you want to see what that would be if we did it here? And that's when you'll hear, okay, actually I need to run it by my partner, or yeah, let's see, what can we do here? And one thing you also want to quote based on, and this is going to be on the price list as well, but quote individual prices, not say if they're looking at 50 gifts and it's $150 a gift, don't say that's going to be $7,500. Tell them that's going to be, $150 a gift. Or, we can get it down to $135 a gift, because they're thinking as a per gift, instead of, a price total. But I would just, ask more and more questions just to narrow it down. And what would you engrave? Would you personalize it? Where would you put your logo? And just kind of ask more questions, and then just ask them what they would feel like if, if they'd want to see what kind of special they can get if they do it here, is kind of simply the question that I ask. And all of this you can feel out as well. Another one that'll often do it is I'm getting some feedback from myself. Is kind of a drop down. Say there's 2 pieces in the set and one of them's the cheese knife, which usually it is if I'm selling it. Is rather than dropping like giving them an extra discount, if say they normally spend, $150 and the cheese knife sets are $165, take the engraving off the cheese knife. Like, hey, well, you probably don't need the engraving on both of them, do you? Because that's going to save them about $950. It would save them $950, because that's the other nice thing with these prices on the price sheets that you'll get, and there'll be an explanation, but we used all full price engraving. So even at the 1,000 quantity, when engraving is really $7, the price list says $950. So that gives you a little bit of room to either make more money or drop down a little bit more. But you could take $950, so $10 off the price of the set without, losing any CPO or costing yourself any money. So that's kind of just a little trick that is hard to remember, but is a great option for when it comes to that.
Can I ask a question?
I suppose.
Cool. So I just kind of would like, if possible, if you could kind of, maybe try to make this short, but when you wrote up that dude didn't want the paring knife, but he wanted, ended up buying 12 grand. What was that interaction like? And when did you know, like when was the moment where you and he knew that he was going to buy it, the $12,000 right then and there? Like what were his questions? What were the main objections you handled? What were the main things you covered that like sold him on the idea of not only getting it, but getting it there then? So yeah.
Mm-hmm. So a lot of it is going to be, honestly, it's going to be Cutco that sells them, right? Like they're there because they like Cutco, they know the quality, they want to share it, right? So that's one of the biggest selling points for the gift, is just the quality of Cutco and the fact that they can put their logo on it and they're going to have it forever. So there's those natural selling points. But in this case, came up, we'll just say he sold them on the paring knife, had the order form, just like I always do. Hey, do you run a business or do any gifts for clients or employees? Yeah, I do. Oh, cool. What do you do? Some seed or something like that. Cool. Can I show you what we do with Cutco? Or I think I asked, what do you normally give? And he said, and that's not a question that you want to ask right away, because then you can't really go back and say why they shouldn't give that gift. So that's usually not a question that you would even want to ask, probably, period. But so I said, what do you normally do? He says, oh, we do, gift cards. And how much do you normally spend? About I think $100 on each one. Cool. Can I show you what we do with Cutco? Sure. So, we take cut. Most people give some sort of gift, like gift card, bottle of wine. Everybody loves these things, but they're consumed and gone right away. There's nothing left to remind them of you. So we take Cutco, which you're familiar with the quality. We engrave it, and now what I'll do is I'll grab a gift and I'll say, we engrave it with your logo right here. Most people don't have any good knives, so the one knife they get is their favorite. They have it forever. They use it every day. It's in the kitchen where everybody hangs out, so it sparks conversations because they're engraved. They're 100% tax deductible as advertising, blah, blah, blah. How many gifts do you normally do? And by this time, you can kind of tell what's his interest level, right? Is he just kind of smirking, or is he engaged? So where they're at. And I just say, so, what do you think? I like it. I think that makes a lot of sense. Do you want to see some of which ones, for your price, we've got, Santoku trimmer, the spreader, the cheese knife. Which one would you be most excited about? The cheese knife. Cool. Can I show you the special we've got going on here? Sure. So what we do here is we upgrade your discount so he was looking at starting with 100. And I said, here, what we do is you'd actually get the price at 250. So it'd be $85 each. But he had said that he gives 150 gifts usually. So he was thinking, okay, yeah, I think I'll do 100. Okay. Cool. And now I know you said you normally do 150. Like, if I could give you a crazy deal, do you think you might just do those other 50 right now? And he says, well, the only time I do 50 or the other 50 is if you gave me this price at 1,000, right? Which was, I don't know, $82 or something. And then I talked to the booth manager, made sure that was okay. And we did it. I mean, it was just kind of, it was giving him a crazy deal. And that's the benefit of these sell sheets too, is like, we're talking quantities of 10, 25, 50, 100, 500, and 1,000. So when they're only getting, I should say only, but 100 gifts, and you're going to give them the price at 1,000, like that's a huge perceived value from them. And it's still, it's basically, I think it's in 1,000, it's 780 is what they're paying for, and they're getting, so it's basically like a buy four, get a fifth one for free. So it's still very favorable for us reps. But that was kind of how that one went down, I suppose. And I'm hoping I sent them 3 samples this year: spreader, lockback, and a Santoku trimmer. And hopefully I can close another deal next month with them. But it's really just, I mean, it's because that question will open the door to the question being, do you run a business, or do you have any gifts to clients or employees? Like, that's going to let you know if I should just where to go with it. But you don't know until you ask the question. So obviously you're not going to pitch everybody, but that's the nice thing too with that question, is it's so direct that if they don't, it's not like, oh, so what do you do? You could take what do you do for work? Oh, I'm a nurse for this and this and this and this. And obviously they don't do gifts, but you just spend so much more time on something like that, like just going down that hole, as opposed to just being direct and just asking straight up, this is what I want to know. Can you give me that information? Because it's not like if they say no, it's not awkward. Okay, cool. And then maybe I'll even just say, yeah, we just do a lot of gifts for businesses. They'll engrave them. There was another one, since you're asking for stories. This guy they were familiar with Cutco, and they didn't want any more, but I knew that they loved it because they were talking about it. They were maybe 10 feet away. A couple guys and their wives were there, but they weren't interested in any more Cutco for themselves. And this is another good option for business gifts for people that they already have enough knives. They don't want any more knives or cookware or flour or whatever, but they don't know about the gifts. So they were out, I asked them if they run a business, or if I asked them, they didn't want to come up to look at the Cutco. So I asked them if they run a business, and they said, or give any gifts. And they said, no, but I persisted anyways because they look qualified. Because oftentimes, understandably, sales guys or business owners will put up that they don't want to let you in because they know they're going to get pitched. But they don't know the value of Cutco yet. So I asked them, I just said, cool, because we take Cutco and we engrave with logos, so rather than giving a gift card or a bottle of wine. And then they came in because they were interested, because they understood it now, why they would give Cutco. Anyways, I got his information. He ended up buying 100 cheese knives 2 months later, referred me to somebody who bought 30 cheese knives. And that just, but I never would have known if I didn't ask And then actually in this case, I persisted and even told him why it was a good gift anyways. Any other questions? I think I'm 25 minutes over. Who do I send the bill to?
Not me.
No.
That's awesome, John. Thank you. By the way, if y'all have any other questions, I know John's not on our group me, but feel free to post those there and I can forward those on or help answer those if you think of anything later. But I think the one big takeaway that I got from everything John said is obviously asking people the question is not important at all. No, that is the number one thing that we were supposed to be doing that we are not doing. And the way I think of this too, as we were talking about it, I know there's a lot of like questions and uncertainty with a lot of this stuff because a lot of us haven't done it or haven't made it a regular thing. But that's how we felt about everything else before. I used to not pitch upgrades because I didn't really know what it was supposed to be like or what I was supposed to do or how I was supposed to present it or how I was supposed to position it to be a good deal for them. Remember last year when we were all afraid to do service events? Luke kept telling us, y'all need to start doing service events. This is a big thing. It's really easy. And we were I remember us having a conversation about a year and a half ago on our team. We were very reluctant to dive into it because we were just unsure of what it looked like. Well, I don't understand it. I don't know what it's like. I don't understand the costs of it or how I'm supposed to talk to customers or how I set up this sharpening or how I do the acuity. And now that we're doing it, it's actually pretty simple and it's like a huge win for our business. And it's something we can't imagine not doing. And this is just kind of the next elevation of our skill set and of our team's focus is focusing on something that maybe we're not all experts at yet, but it's actually a lot simpler than we think it is. And the one thing I will add that John really alluded to, and kind of if you have a lot of questions about, like Roger was asking about like objections, Carlton just saying like, I don't really know what I'm supposed to be doing or what I'm supposed to be asking. The main thing that John said and that I have found to be true too is most of the business owners I've talked to are very decisive and they're very direct. And when you ask a question, it's either, do you give gifts? Yes or no. Is this a program that makes sense for your business? Yes or no. They'll tell you once you ask that question, you open that door, they'll be very clear about, this is what I spend. This is what I want. This is what I like. These are our business's needs. This is how many gifts I give. And so once you ask the question and open up the door, the information flows out of people a lot faster and easier than you think. And they're very clear about, people just say, oh no, I hate the idea of giving scissors. Nope, I'd never give that, but I like this little knife. And you're like, okay, great. And it's just kind of a guiding them through and asking a question and leading to the next thing. But people will, if people, like John said, they either want it or they don't. And if you open that door and they do want it, then you'll likely close an order on it. We know how to sell. And ultimately, the strategies for how to sell. You give people the incentive, you give them an extra special deal, you ask a couple questions, and in the end, they end up getting Cutco, right? That's pretty much the same thing with business gifts. And the one thing that I will say, I almost feel like it's almost easier with business gifts sometimes because there is not as much hemming and hawing about things. They are going to give gifts to their clients regardless. This isn't do I need new knives? Can I afford it? Is this going to be worth $1,500? If they say that they're spending $100 on gifts for their clients every single year, they have 50 people they buy for, they're either spending $100 with us or they're spending $100 with somebody else. It's already in their budget. It's already top of mind. They're actively looking for things. And you have to remember that we are providing a service to them because now they're going to get something new, something unique, something that's going to last long term, and something that they can check off the list. Oh, great. I was trying to figure out what I was going to spend $10,000 on this year for gifts. Thank you for giving me a great place to spend that $10,000 and a place that it's going to go very efficiently and make it worth the money instead of just $10,000 in gift cards. So just remember that people are very decisive because they are spending this money regardless. They're not, this isn't something we're having to really, push and entice them to do. They're going to buy that. They're going to spend that money anyway. It's already in their budget for the year. It's already in their marketing plan. They already have the money for it. So just keep that in mind. You're in a position of power here. We are acting as a service to these businesses and these business owners, not just trying to lure them and convince them to spend their money on Cutco. And that's why when somebody's spending $100, we don't show them $250 gifts. Maybe you can coax somebody to spend a little more, but the whole point is we're not adding a new expense to their business. We are replacing the money they're already spending, which is something more efficient. So just keep that in mind too. You're in a position of power here. Don't be intimidated by business owners.